I'm at the Red House with the one and only Mike Bennett of B String. Thank you for coming over.
Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate you asking me to be here.
I've been looking forward to talking to you for a long time. Just, I don't know, getting a chance to get some of your perspective on our community, on your own story, all that good stuff.
Well, there's plenty of it, so I appreciate it, man. I've always enjoyed your stuff, too. I really have. You're good, honest, straightforward music, and I've always liked that, even back when I first met you years ago.
Yeah.
So it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, that was something I knew I would tell you when you were here, was just how big of a moment I feel like that was in my little world. It was kind of like there were just a few pivotal moments where I felt like I was really a part of the Winston-Salem art scene. And one of the biggest ones was when I got to play with you for that set for the Levon Helm thing afterward. That
was a blast. I saw you guys do it at the Ramcat, and I've always been a big fan of the Last Waltz show. And you guys did it so good. I mean, you had the horns, and everybody was in the right mood and everything. I was getting ready to do the Summer on Trade show. And it's always, can I do something different? Can I bring something other than the same old songs and stuff? And when I heard you guys, that's when I was like, that's what that street needs. So, and we had a good time doing it down there.
Yeah, we did. It was an honor. So thank you for that.
Thank you,
again.
Man. I enjoyed it. I saw Kike recently, and we mentioned that. It's been longer than I thought, quite a bit longer than I thought. But yeah, it's all good.
Hell yeah, man. So let's jump off at the starting point and see what we work our way up to.
Okay.
One of the obvious questions is probably, you're probably the guy who most represents the craft of loving guitars, the craft of preserving guitars, the craft of reselling guitars, like all this. You represent like the love of this instrument.
Well, I appreciate that. My dad said it was the only thing I was ever really good at. So,
oh, yeah?
As far as, that was a compliment for him. He's like, yep, well, you're really good at that, So, I got that from him.
You got that from your dad?
Yeah, Dad was a, old school hard ass, in the 70s and stuff. And he didn't believe, like when I was getting ready to go to college as a music major, Dad was like, nah, that's not what you should do. You should take some business courses. And I'm like, I never have a business, And now, of course, I wish I'd taken business courses. But, I kind of musical family. His brother was, I guess, my first original guitar hero. He's lots of bluegrass on my grandma's back porch, wash tub bass and everything. And this is when I'm 6-7 years old. It was when it started. And, you go up to grandma's for the Sunday thing, or the cousins come in from out of town, and they play bluegrass on the back porch all the time. And I just sit there mesmerized with real guitars and banjos. And I never could make a sound on the wash tub. As much as I tried, as hard as I did the string, I never could figure out how to do it. But, he was the first one to, show me a chord. So that goes all the way back to Dad's brother. Dad was no musicians, Mom and Dad, no. He thought he could play bongos, but that was mostly George Dickel, I think it was leading at.
Man, I remember the first time I ever saw anybody playing a washtub bass, and that's a mesmerizing experience.
I couldn't figure it out, and I tried, and I pulled it tight and everything, and this guy was just good with it, boom, boom, boom. The two notes is really all he need, but I've heard now they use weed eater string, and it's just like twice the volume. So,
really?
Yeah, for the diehard washtub guys.
Man,
since they made weed eater string now, that's the shit.
Progress.
Exactly.
It bleeds into everything.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that is where your love of guitars kind of began, is on those back porches with bluegrass music.
It started there, definitely. My same uncle was really good Chet Atkins style finger playing, and to this day, I'm still, that stuff blows my mind, But so from that, and then my brother played. I have an older brother. It's just the two of us, but he's about 6 years older than me. And he played pretty well. He was getting pretty good. And he goes to college at Chapel Hill and left the old Silvertone hollow body at the house. And Dad didn't want to buy an amplifier, so he rigged the stereo system with a 1/4-inch jack, and until we discovered feedback and took ghost speakers out. And Dad was like, damn it, TV sounds like shit. You know, what is going on? We've blown that thing up. But so that was my first playing, was on my brother's old Silvertone, until he came home one weekend and said, I'm taking it back, I'm selling it. And I was like, I just started playing, man. He's like, well, you got $50. No. So there it went. And I was 14 then and got my first guitar, which was a copy of a Telecaster, and it was $100. And there again, Dad steps in, and we go to the local music store, and they have acoustics over here and they have electrics over here. And of course, I'm over here with the rock and roll guitars that I'm gonna have, and Dad's over here, and it was like, what are you doing over there? Because this is what we're getting. The agreement was I'd pay for half and he'd pay for half, and he was like, this is what we're getting. I told him that might as well be a clarinet. I just don't want that. I wanted an electric guitar. And he was like, well, you're going to have to save a little more money. So he went home, and I went straight that day and got a paper route. So when I got home a little later, he was, where have you been? I said, well, I went and got a job because I'm getting my guitar. And it impressed him. So took me back up there, and okay, we got my guitar. And it came with a 90-day payment plan, which also included the definition of repossession. If you're 1 day late, this man's going to come to our house. He's going to take this guitar. You'll never see it or your money ever again. And old Mr. Moe was like, yeah, he's right. So, oh, wow. So, but I made my $25 a month payment for 3 months, 25 down and 25 a month for the $100 guitar. And that got it started. And I also got in trouble for taking it apart. A couple weeks into it, we were tinkerers, built model cars and stuff. I got to see what makes this thing click. So I took it apart. Dad came in, sees stuff all over the place, and he was like, "You don't respect your nothing, You just what is?" And I told him I can put it back together, and I did pretty good getting it back together. Didn't know they go wonky when you take them apart, but before Dad passed, he came down and saw the shop, and he was like, I see you're still taking them apart. And I showed him my license. I said, yeah, but I'm getting paid now. So all good.
Man, so that's how it started
happened. With my copy of my Fender and rock and roll. That's all I wanted to do at 14,
Well, that's kind of beautiful that it sounds like that's such a clear indication of what you're still doing and what your nature is.
It was on. It was truly on at that point. Got 15, got a band, garage band, and kids and stuff. We were pretty good. We played the Morganton picnic for the city, and we played 4 songs. And the mayor came up and said, "Boys, you were great." And we were like, "We'll play some more." He said, "No, it's all good." They didn't like the Black Sabbath, I don't think. I'm sure we've all played the vocals, the bass, the keyboards, and the microphone in one amp, so it bound to sound really bad. But the first professional gig, and they said, "No, you're good." So that's how we wound up.
Yeah. Okay. So were you, let's see. So you kind of said 14, 15.
Yeah.
That's when you started messing with guitars and when you got this guitar. So did you play in a lot of bands in your teenage years?
Yeah, I had some. We actually had a couple really good bands. And then I guess the biggest thing that set me to, I got to get real serious about that was our high school had a really good jazz band. The local guys, there was 2 guys in front of me that were just like rock gods, man. They could play, and Steve Hoke was one of them, and I go see him play, a few years older than me, and just, he could tear it up. So the jazz band was a good place, and they played Chicago and stuff, 25 or 64, and so let the guitar player go. And it was during those 70s, and that was where I started really learning. You got chord charts, and they gave me room to solo, and I started understanding chords and stuff. Couldn't read those dots, couldn't read those notes. I tried. I was doing okay in the key of C, but man, after that, it's just too much. But that was a big step in because back then, I mean, God, we had jazz band 4 times a week, and you could go in and we had a whole giant room with drums, keyboards, bass amp, guitar amp, and room for everything, and we get an hour a day. And in the meantime, I had a study hall that a teacher granted me a permanent, go to the band room, for study hall. So I sit and play guitar an hour during study hall at the band room. They don't do that anymore. Not many schools have the budget to have any band, much less a whole extra jazz band. But that was a big deal back then.
So I want to ask about rock and roll. Like, I feel like, I don't know. It's it obviously speaks to especially people who I think experienced it at a certain point in life, and like rock and roll, like the blues derivative rock and roll that existed, that obviously changed post the 70s or whatever. Why do you think that spoke to you in the way that it did, that drew you in like that and kind of pulled you away from acoustic and from some of your roots and stuff?
It really was just where I was in it. Everybody in town, my brother was a great influence, him being a little older, and he came on one day and I believe he said, get that damn Monkees album off my turntable, and had a new Allman Brothers album. So he was constantly bringing really good influences to me. And this was mostly the 70s. So we had the British rock invasion, which was all blues based. I mean, that's all they did was the Stones, and all of them wanted Muddy Waters songs and, Howlin' Wolf songs, and they'd redo them. That was their rock gods, was the early, blues guys and everything. So when that came over, and that was a lot more guitar derivative, it got over here, and that's right in the heyday when I was into it. So everybody I knew was playing, even Zeppelin, all that stuff. It's just blues rock driven, and so I started on that. That was what really tripped my trigger. That's what I liked to hear. Then I got more into the blues part of it, and from that went down the bluegrass part of it. And it's seeing all the connections and everything. So I really enjoy it. The people call me blues guitar player all the time, and I'm like, I guess I am, at heart, but I like it all.
Yeah. When you talk about where this was all unfolding, was it all local? Were you from here?
No, I'm from Morganton. I've been here in this area since '86. I was playing. Everything's happened to me. It's just been a weird chain of events. I was playing with a house band in Morganton. I'd been on the road for a couple of years with a band named Coyote that was a southern rock. We had a kind of a record deal. RCA gave us some money and sent us to Studio B in Nashville to see what we come out sounding like. And
well, that's interesting.
It was interesting. And that band wouldn't hire me at first because I was young. Look at his chubby cheeks. He's a little kid, and but because I was much younger than them as well, and they already had kind of a record deal going, some kind of shake up in the band, and so part of them went one way and part the other way. And they finally, as I was hired first, I was hired as a bass player because they didn't have a bass player. And when I got out of college, I only went to school a couple of years, and then this band came along, rock band with possible record deal. So I'm like, all right, Pop, I think I'm gonna get out of school. And he's like, have a good time, son, but this band had some record progress, and played bass for the first year and then switched to guitar. And so when I came out of that, we were in Nashville, and I was 21, I guess. And it was a crazy time because in walks 3 guys that are doing the horn parts, and the engineer goes, I want it to go, he just hums his part, and they go in and record. They're in there 5-10 minutes, come out, get paid, and walked out. And I was like, wow, those guys are good. Do they play around here? He said, yeah, ever heard of Elvis? So it was Elvis horn section. Of course, he's gone now, and but it was part of his guys. Bobby Whitlock, that played the piano on Layla, Eric Clapton came and did the sessions. This was big stuff, especially for me. But that band, bless their heart, we thought we were rock stars, but we made no money. I mean, zero money. It all went into the truck and the PA and the, everything that it takes. You guys need more lights. You guys need bigger this, bigger that. And we traipsed up and down the East Coast many times. Last time I was gone like 2.5 months. And so I had to get a regular gig, and I did a house gig in Morganton, which was, steady paycheck, crummy, play some top 40 songs. You got a steady paycheck. But this other band called the Younger Brothers came through my town often and would sell this other joint out. It held about 400, and they'd sell it out every time. So I went over to see them one night, and they asked me if I'd like to play a song. So I got up and I think played the ZZ Top song, and the next day they offered me, would you like to come play with us? And they were from Tobacconville. So and at that time, God, they paid really good money, all expenses paid, strings, clothes, they took care of everything, Blue Cross Blue Shield. I was like, I've never had this. So,
yeah.
And it was a good professional band. So that's how I wound up down here. They were like, here's a band, here's a trailer down in Tobacconville. So, bam.
Damn.
Moved in one day.
Huh.
And loved this area. Just loved, this is where I really connected with real players. I mean, really solid musicians. I told my friends back then, if we needed a bass player or drummer, it took months. Down here, it's a couple of phone calls.
Yeah.
If he can't do it, he can, and that part of it just made me really step up another notch to try to be one of those guys that got called,
Damn. So, at that point in this area, when you're talking about a lot of stuff, was there a lot of? I guess that gives me a sense that in this area was there a lot of collaboration? Was there a lot of music scene going on?
When I first got here, I didn't know anybody. So as far as the locals and all the people that I now call friends and and musician friends and all that kind of stuff, I didn't know any of them. I didn't, because the band at that time we were a road band. We would go to, you go to the beach for a week, and then you go to Spartanburg for a week, play in a hotel usually, just for 6 nights. And it was a really good band, and it made me step up because they played everything. I mean, I never knew what was coming back, and they had hundreds of songs, and you better sound like that record. If you want to get paid, that guy ran it was like, you need to sound like the record. So that made me step up a good notch as a player too, because they were top notch band. But yeah, I didn't know anybody down here, and it took me starting to get out and jam with some people here and there to get known here in this area. And then we kind of got to a point where Tammy and I have 3 kids between us. We kind of started over, and then, I got a decade I've got to work and raise a family and get a W-2 and have insurance and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So completely dropped out for a decade. When I say dropped out, I mean sold all my equipment, just got rid of everything. Not playing out anymore. I'm not going to be in the bars at 2 a.m. and coming in at 4 or 5. And I can't do that because I got kids. So literally for a solid 10 years, it was it. Didn't play. I kept a friend of mine brought me a black Stratocaster to the house and said, just keep it and play it. Don't get your chops where you don't, just every once in a while. And I'd play it some around the house, but nothing like I used to, Mm-hmm. So it was a 10-year hiatus to be an adult. Sucks sometimes.
There's a few things amidst this story that I want to ask about, but while we're on this, so after that break, where are you at with playing? Where I guess we could get a picture of what your relationship is with playing now, as opposed to, or as it balances out with running the business and everything. And
yeah, well, I think the part that really got me back into it was I came down to we had a week off, and we used to go to this music festival out in the woods, you know, kind of just go let go and play music for all the weekend. And that was my start back into it. A friend of mine who is an incredible bass player. Everybody wants him to play bass. He's also an incredible guitar player, but he had a little folk band kind of thing where that was his guitar gig. Had another guy play bass, so that was his chance to play guitar. He wound up kind of double booked one time and asked me if I could do it. And it's like, you know, kind of learn all these songs and play for a couple days at a festival in King, which we always enjoy doing. But I'd go Thursday night. We call it Thursday night boys club, you know, over here, and we'd drink some and party some, and then we'd play a little bit, and then we'd get over and giggle for a while. And it was an excellent time for me that just kind of cracked the ice. And I filled in for him a couple times, and at one point, his other gig fell through, and so we had two guitar players. And I told him I would step back, and he said, "No, let's both play." And that was a band called the Traveling Dogs. That's a little folk band here in King, around here. And that right there just kind of broke the ice for me I started playing a little bit. And then I got a job up here at Shannock's, and that got me out of a crazy job. I used to make glass tabletops. That's another whole gig, but it got me out of the glass plant with all my fingers. So that was a good thing.
I worked on cabins for a while, and same deal. I was a little worried about it for a second.
Yep. But that whole thing, the 10 years off was exactly that. I mean, I still listen to music and everything, and I'd pick up a guitar and play it, but it was not like anything else. It became, you got to be at work at 7. You come home and 3 kids, and so it just kind of went away. I was talking to some friends of mine downtown. They go, "Why don't I know you? I mean, I knew the name, but why are we just meeting?" And because you're 10 years younger than me. When you were rocking the clubs, I was, working daddy.
So that was how the Shannock's thing happened. You started out in King and working out with bands out there.
That really got me. I mean, I can just say that really got me back in the music business. I stopped there one day on the way to that festival to get some strings. They just happened to say, "Hey, we're looking for some help," and very good offer, very good chance to get back in it and not drive to Mount Airy in a glass plant. And that right there just got the whole ball rolling. And the last piece of the straw was the guitar I sold before the 10-year hiatus was given back to me on Christmas Eve. And so that's my dear friend Vicky found it in Charlotte and held it for me.
Wow.
Until I was ready, and then brought it back to me. So the guitar I had since I was 19, I did sell it twice and got it back twice, and it'll never go anywhere again, but that's the one.
That's so interesting because I'm getting the sense that a lot of people around you saw that you had this relationship with music and with guitar and stuff, and were kind of helping you remember it and helping you keep it alive.
There was friends that insisted, like my one buddy when brought me the guitar, he's just like, just keep it. I don't need it. I don't want it. And occasionally somebody would, call, and I might go over to somebody's house and play a little bit or everything, but nothing was out. And about the Shannock's days was when I kind of started hitting, out a little more gigs. And then I got the Bright Street job, and that was a band started in 1974, and they were Greensboro based. And I came home from that rehearsal telling my wife I'm very possibly the weakest link, and so I did time with them, and just that took me to another level, and then kind of got back into it from there. Before the shop, I went to Shannock's first, and I spent 4 years up there. Good people, got to know a lot more good people. So, but that's where it got back into it.
And like in that whole stretch of time, were you always kind of not only aware of, I guess, here's how I mean to ask it. Where did your knowledge for sort of the different qualities of guitar and like your knowledge of Fenders and Gibsons and acoustics and all this stuff, like I'm guessing that accumulated over time. But I guess, was that just a passion that you always had in there?
Always. I mean, I lived and breathed that stuff. And this Fender headstock's different than this one, and all that kind of stuff. And there was a gentleman named A.C. Lale in Bethlehem, North Carolina, that worked on my guitars when I was on the road with Coyote, because I'd be gone sometimes months. And I'd bring my guitar to him, and it just played magically when I got it back. And he was real kind, nice older gentleman. Here's a 53 Telly. Go sit over and play it. Play me some of that bluesy licks I like to hear. So while he's fixing my guitar, and one day he said, just pull your stool over here. You need to learn how to do this. And the first thing he said, and I couldn't agree more, but knowing now, but Fender guitars were designed by an engineer. Leo Fender he wasn't a technician, he was an engineer. And he designed it so the average man could adjust his guitar the way he wanted it. And AC told me one day, he said, nobody knows how your guitar plays but you. So why wouldn't you be the one to adjust it? And I was like, whoa. And he laid it out on the table, and he said, you can't hurt this thing. You can fall off the building with it, and I doubt if it'll break you. So you're okay. And he showed me just graciously, just out of the goodness of his heart. He was one of those guys. And when I got certified Fender, I took my little plaque and showed him, and was all cool. But no, he showed me some things, reading. I wish I'd had YouTube back then, but reading all the time, getting books on it, studying. And of course, you do something wrong, you go, oh, wow, I better not do that again. The best learning tool, screwing up. So,
yeah.
But no, that kind of tinkering part of it. I was 18. I thought, well, I'll build guitars. You didn't know anything about it, except it took a whole lot of tools that I didn't have. But never got that far. We're into it now, kind of stuff. But no, I always loved just kind of messing with them a little bit and seeing if I could make them play better. And the feeding and care of them, when I was 16, I got my first Les Paul. I mean, I'd play it 5 minutes and shine it 5 minutes. It was one of those, set it over and look at it. It was just one of those holy things.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I got tinkering into it. And then out of necessity, I'm on the road. There's nobody around to fix my guitar. So here, pickup's out. Let me fix it. And that kind of became, I carried full soldering iron, potentiometers, capacitors, extra bridge. I had everything in a bag in case something happened. I had to fix my guitar.
Yeah.
And that was the way it happened.
I think I'm a little surprised to learn it sounds like maybe your touring experience is more extensive than I might have realized.
It was early on. And like I said, the Coyote band, we got to open up for some great national acts. So we were a great opening band and everything. And spent all day with a Nitty Gritty Dirt Band in the attic in Greenville, playing pool and tank. John McEwen could figure out how to play tank, So just stuff like that was that band. And that was being young and, freed, single and everything, just hitting the road. That was a great time in my life. And I was a good kid. I tried to keep it, in the lines, even though these other guys are wild as they can be. But
yeah,
I try to keep it, somewhere there. But that was fun days. Rock band on the road, and it's everything you would think it is, and seeing the movies, and but more. And then I got more structured bands was more professional. This is the way it's going to be, and pretty straight laced, and I had to step up for that too.
When you were talking about Coyote, you'd mentioned like that band didn't make any money, and I found that interesting, especially because it sounds like the scale that band was working at was kind of a big demand. Did you see that? Did that change with some of these other bands you were talking about?
Oh, sure. There was, and the difference when the Coyote was a corporation. So if the truck motor blew and it was $3,000, that just came off the top, and here's $50 that's left. And that's why they really didn't make any money. It was just, continued Spinal Tap saga of the 70s, that blew this up and the truck blew up. And we got on our way to, got deep down in Florida, and gig just up and got canceled, which knocked a week of work, and come back home, from middle of Florida with no gigs in between. So just everything that could happen happened. And that was just typical young rock band. Other bands were run by, one guy has the band, he owns the truck, he owns the PA, he books the gigs. Here's your paycheck.
Yeah.
And don't ask me what the band's getting paid, because here's your money. And it was great money. So hey man, get yours,
Yeah.
So, but that was kind of on. And, but yeah, I toured, let's see, Coyote was 4 or 5 years. And then I went to, when I went to the Younger Brothers, that was 4 or 5 years. And the Younger Brothers was 6 nights a week. I mean, you had Sunday off and some Mondays, but most of the time it was 6 days in the same place, which for me is fine. We didn't have to pack up and move every night like a lot of the other bands.
Yeah.
Daily gigs and stuff. So, and they were top-notch band, and so you practice during the day to get it right for the evening. That was your job, but they paid well. So,
well, so that kind of, I think the story you've laid out so far kind of explains a lot of your relationships in the local community. And so, what was the decision like to finally go to Trade Street?
That's a saga all in itself. Everybody talks about it's a dream I had. I never dreamed this. I never had the means, the financial means, or the business sense and everything to do that. I was approached when I was working at Shannock's. I was approached by a very good friend who told me, I think you need your own music store. And I just, didn't even think much about it, because I explained to him, well, that'd be great, probably, but I do not have, like I said, we had kids and stuff and everything, so it was a little different situation. And, this guy's an angel on earth. He just, he said, well, I've got the money, and you need to find a place. And so I knew downtown was kind of bubbling, It was kind of Trade Street. You used to didn't go to Trade Street. You better not be down there late at night. It was kind of a bad place. Well, they cleaned it up, and the arts thing was coming along, and I found this spot where I'm at. And at the time, there was a little place down the hall from me, and that was the one I first looked at. It was a little small. It was big enough to put a workbench to fix guitars and teach lessons. Well, there's a paycheck. So, even though it's small, I can make it work. And the front space, my landlord said, man, you'll never get that space. That woman's been here for 13 years. And she made sculptures out of sticks and stones and rocks. So when you looked in the windows, full of logs and sticks and rocks, because she made beautiful stuff out of them. But he kind of wanted retail in that spot. Mm. And 2 weeks later, she gave her notice. He called me to see what kind of juju I'd put out there, or what I did. And so we went down to talk to him. This is Ron Probst. Ron's he's responsible for a lot of that downtown scene going on. And Ron is an artist himself, and he is pro art of every kind. The people in that building are unbelievable. Just the quality of art and who they are, and their, all their stature in the world and everything. And Ron pulls out this piece of paper that's just names and phone numbers. He said, this is the people I'm supposed to call when that place comes empty. He said, what are you going to bring to the table? And I was not prepared for that question. I thought, I'm going to sell some guitars. I didn't know. But I thought of Ron, this happened pretty quick. I thought of Ron as an artist. I said, well, you've got every art there is in this building, but you don't have any music. I said, I'll bring the music. And he goes, let's do it. It was that quick, and that blessing came down. And so from the time I was approached about find you a place, I've got the money, and we'll get it going, was just a couple months. It's just happened very quick. And when I met my friend to discuss, the financial stuff and everything, there's another thing that happened. He gives me a check, and then he tells me that there's another thing you hadn't thought of. You're not going to make any money right away. It's going to take you a while to get, business going and everything. And he owned a construction company, and I became a construction worker on paper. So I got a direct deposit for 6 months every Friday into my bank account. So I didn't have to worry about, I can't make any money. And that part of it was the one that still just blows my mind, because it was the difference between life and death in business. And we lost him this year, but he's had bad brain tumors, and dear friend, and lost him this year. And probably the best musical performance I've done in a while was we sent him off right. I mean, we had a guy that he loved this band called the Subdudes, New Orleans band that we became friends with, and they had the keyboard player played squeeze box, accordion. And this one song particularly, he wanted. I called my friend Jack Gorham, who plays the Vagabond sometimes, and he came in, and man, it sounded just like the record. So I mean, and then after the service, we go out. The other request is you take your Les Pauls and go out here, raise a glass, have a beer, and you guys tear those Les Pauls up. And we did just that, and miss him dearly. But I mean, stuff like that doesn't happen. My brother's a big businessman, and he was like, "What kind of lease do you have, at your shop? Do you renew it yearly?" And I said, "Don't have a lease." We shook hands on it, and there's 2 rules in the building: you pay your rent on time, don't complain. So I'm like, okay, I think I can do that. And my other friend that did all the, did loan me the money, did the renovations in the shop. It was an empty white room when I got it. So he's got a construction company. They came put my studio up, my counter, my slat wall to hold the guitars, did all that, put me on his payroll and everything. I mean, that was done on a handshake. There was there's no interest. There was no. He said, at some point you pay me back, and you pay it on. You pass it on. That was the whole agreement on the deal. And I mean, shit like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen in this world. And it happened to me twice. I mean, my friend comes down, I find the place, my landlord, and then my friend's, going to bless it with, his kindness. And we did get him paid back. I mean, in about 3.5 years, which was, I mean, who knew? And we started mild. I mean, we started out very easy, but that was the saga of the business. It was not my idea, and it just wasn't. It was somebody else's vision, and somebody else saw it ahead of me. And man, bless them for that, man. Like I said, it doesn't happen anymore.
Do you have a particular lesson you carry from all that?
Well, the part about pass it on, I've tried to do nothing but that. I mean, I've had people, and to this day, man, there's people come in, they can't afford to get their guitar fixed, and I got a part laying there or something, just put it on and get them out there, and you can kind of tell who can, who can't. I got a little girl that's getting ready to start playing guitar, and mom can't afford, but how much is it to string it and everything? Well, I'll string it, but then I'll do a full setup on it. I got to adjust the neck. I have to do all this because it's me turning a wrench, but it's the difference between her being able to match those strings down and everything. So to me, I've just kept that part in all the time. We try to help people. I've had working musicians that I gotta have it tonight. It's the difference between a guy's got 40 guitars and he wants it tonight, versus a guy has one and he's got to go make a living.
Yeah.
Well, guess which one I'm fixing first, because I've been that guy.
Yeah. I hear that. Well, I mean, so I got to ask you an obvious question. I want to hear what your dream guitars are. And if we can narrow it down to some categories, that would be fine too. But
you mean particular models and guitars?
I want to know, whatever comes to mind is cool, but I'd be curious, like, what your dream acoustic is, what your dream Les Paul is, what your dream electric is, all that shit.
Man, I'll be honest with you. Since I got the shop especially, I mean, there's been some vintage pieces come by. And vintage pieces are funny because when I was a kid, these were called used guitars. There was new guitars, and there was, that's a used guitar, the 64 Strat that my friend had, for 175. It's used. I might get me a new one, It's that kind of mentality back then. And then the 70s was when all this vintage stuff starts blowing up. All the rock stars are getting all the old ones to take and play. So my personal guitars, I'm pretty dang happy with. I still have the old Telecaster that my friend found and gave back to me. And that's been, if I got a call right now saying there's a gig, we don't know what it is, but you're going to need, bring a guitar and come, that would be the one, because it will do everything there is. There's a Telecaster that we built. We build Tele replicas and Strat replicas at the shop. And we built one that just took it home, and I usually don't take them home, and it never made it back. So I'm a Tele guy. I feel like you got to have a Stratocaster. It's like a, Phillips head screwdriver. You better have one to do the job. So I've got a nice Strat, and my guitars, they didn't cost much. Well, partly because I've got a guitar shop. The Martin that I've got that's a pretty good story in that I had looked at this guitar in early 90s. I'd seen it and just sounded incredible. And flash forward to the Shanix days, my friend Buddy came in. He said, my dad loaned a guy some money and never saw him again. And he wants to sell this and get his money back. And opened the case, and there's that Martin. And I'm like, oh, holy hell, there it is. I couldn't believe it. And during the kids' day, still didn't have any money. My friend's dad said, well, hell, I'll take $100 a month from you. And he also owned a little dive bar up in Lawsonville. So we go play that. Well, that knocked off $100, So I played that 4 times and got him a deposit. I actually got it paid off early, but that's my Martin, and that's kind of how that happened. I did own a 1942 Gibson Southern Jumbo that I bought and restored. A guy named Herb Key, who is 86 years old now. Herb he knew everything there was about the Gibsons, and I couldn't. There was no numbers on it. Couldn't tell what it was, so I take it up to Herb, and it turns out to be a 42 Southern Jumbo. And he says, aside from that, it was March of 42, and the wood left over was Brazilian rosewood from the old advanced jumbos, and they just had some wood in the back, so they made 10. I think 10, maybe 12, somewhere in that area, out of rosewood. Well, this was one of those. And it was busted really bad. I'm like, he can't fix this thing. Well, Herb did and could, and he put it all back together. And that's probably the most glorious acoustic I've ever owned. When COVID came and everything shut down, I had a couple guitars put up for a retirement, just 401k, and that was one of them because didn't know what the value was, but they were high. And I got thinking about, times are shutting down, people are not playing. I don't know. I'd closed the shop for 10 weeks and I don't know what's going on. So we cashed in the 42 and we got a back porch on the house now. Which made sense.
Sometimes you got to do things like that.
It's even better. So
yeah. It is interesting as it's interesting the little lives, that like this should be a movie somebody makes. It's like the little lives. I guess they did with that Red Violin movie.
I seen it, yeah.
But the lives that these instruments live, where they, they start out somewhere. They start out in some shop in Mexico or in some shop in Pennsylvania and get shipped off somewhere, some store, and then somebody picks it up. And it's interesting, I guess, that you've run into multiple instruments in different places and at different times in life.
I'd love to know some of the stories. There's a 1960 Gibson J50 we just sold to Benji Sparks of Blackberry Smoke, and Benji saw the pictures, and it had the look, and you wanted to know the story because it's almost a Willie Nelson hole going on, and the sound hole was chewed up. I mean, somebody had played this thing, and I'm thinking, did they play gospel? Did they, Southern gospel? What did they play on this thing to get it like looking like that? And the ones that look like that sound like that. I mean, they've been played, and those ones got sound. Benji saw the pictures, and he said, the pictures are killing me. So we worked out a deal to send that to him for a couple-day approval and make sure he liked it. Hour after he got it, he sent me a text. Oh, it's a keeper. It's so, and he said the same thing. He said, I would just love to know the story of this guitar. I said, make it up, man.
Yeah. I'm guessing I might know the answer to this. You might surprise me. I don't know. But what, are you more attracted to those, or do you find yourself ever attracted to the sort of luxury, glamorous guitars?
No, man. Those things, we used to call them dentist guitars because they'd have one hanging over their pool table. You know, look at my Paul Reed Smith Dragon, you know, and that kind of thing. No, I really am drawn to the ones, like you said, that had a story, that's got some character, because I mean, everything that's done to that thing changes the way it sounds, and if you play them that long, I mean, they're gonna sound great. And I'm real blessed now to have a luthier named Aaron Morris, who is a good friend of mine. He's one of the best people. He's one of these last little Yoda guys, you know, has a cabin in the back and just magic. Yeah. And he's taken some that we've gotten in that were rough and just done some amazing restorations on them and stuff. I've got I guess one of the most special guitars I got is a 100-year-old Parlor that Aaron took the back off, and he did all this for them. It was going to be his back porch guitar. So he put a Martin scallop bracing in it rather than a little ladder bracing, souped it up, gut-wise in the motor, and got it, fretboard, frets, everything, got it all. And it just sounds incredible. Little bitty guitar. And I used to go down there every time when I dropped some stuff off and play it. And I asked him one day, I said, where's the little Parlor? He said, I hadn't played it since last time you were down here. I said, well, then it ought to be for sale. And we talked to it a few minutes, and he said, well, what are you going to do with it? I said, I'm going to keep it forever. And that was it. That was the word to get, if I'd said, oh, I'm going to sell it, make some money, he might have gone, well, I may hang on, but I meant it. And that one is just special. I mean, to be 100 years old and in the shape it's in, I mean, it's pristine, especially since he did the restoration. And just what a cool guitar.
Yeah, there's something special about that. I forget what it was. It was when I started, and I think I hit you up about this. It was when I started looking into Cuban guitars. Yeah. I found some video of kind of a similar situation like that. Some old beat up piece of shit that somebody who just really knew what they were doing. Because when I look at something like that, knowing nothing about how to work on guitars, I would look at a lot of guitars and say, well, that's a lost cause. Like, it's just, that would take so much work. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's these artists that can, patch those holes and make them make them into this beautiful thing. And, you see those videos floating around online sometimes, and it's just magical what they can make those guitars into.
I mean, he had a guitar at one point that was, we always talk about pre-war Martins. That's pre-World War II, pre-40s. Well, his pre-war guitar was pre-Civil War. It was a Martin guitar before the Civil War. It came to him in 2 boxes of parts, and he put that sucker back together again. I mean, and the history on that, for a guitar from the 1800s, first off, the wood's still there. And then him looking at it like it's a puzzle going, this is that and this is that. And then, so that's a whole nother level of work from what I do, for sure.
Are there any guitar legend things out there that, say I could press a button for you, make some guitar dreams come true? You could encounter a guitar or two that are out in the ether, that are out in the world, that belong to people, or that are just guitars that you're aware of. Are there any of those that come to mind for you that you just love to be able to see?
That'd be Dwayne Allman's Les Paul, the last one he had, the Dark Burst. I was fortunate enough to play Tony Rice's Herringbone. I would mention that guitar as another one, but I did have the pleasure of playing that. Snuffy Smith, I don't know if you knew Snuffy. I
didn't know him. But.
Oh, God. Another, luthier guru that was just cooler than Santa Claus, and he'd go to Snuffy's and get some work done and everything, and he'd go to the vault, and open the case, and it was like, God almighty, there it is. And you play it, and he always chuckled, you know, he kind of get a laugh because nobody sounded like Tony Rice. The guitar was a little, everybody thinks it's going to be the loudest guitar on the planet and this and that. It's not. It's just, the action's low as an electric. I mean, he kept it really low, really light touch, but it didn't sound like that when I play. It just didn't sound like he said, and Snuffy said, you know, he can move the pick just millimeters, and here's the sound, not right here, you know, and he just do that without thinking. So I did have the pleasure of playing that. Yeah, but Dwayne Allman's Les Paul, that would be, if I could play one guitar, that would be the one I'd love to get my hands on, just to feel it. Now his gold Les Paul, the guy that bought that before it went to the auction was extremely generous with it. I mean, he'd carry it to concerts, any artist in town. Hey, you know, Vince Gill, Blackberry Smoke, anybody. Hey, want to play Dwayne's Les Paul? Vince Gill said, well, hell yeah. You know, just that kind of thing. So, you know, that guy was real generous with that. There was a story from the Big House Museum where a guy came in, and this guy was standing at the door, and they're paying tickets, and the guy was going to pay for his ticket, and his wife said, oh, no, it's your birthday. Now, I'll take care of it. It's on me. So she paid his way in. It was her birthday gift. And the guy heard him say that, and he went over to his wife and said, you mind if I give your husband a birthday present? She said, oh, no, that'd be nice of you. Took him straight upstairs to a room where the gold Les Paul and Princeton reverbs plugged up. He said, enjoy yourself. You know, wow.
That's crazy.
That's crazy stuff.
So his burst, and what would you say? It was orange burst or something?
It was a dark burst. The last one he got, and that one, man, we all still look at the pictures, even black and white pictures of that thing. The Curly Maple is insane, and that was one. And I go back to those guys. I mean, you know, they didn't change guitars every song like the Eagles. You know, they didn't pick up this for this song. They played that Les Paul all night long. They didn't send it off to Jimmy to tune it up. And he sit there, you know, Greg would hit the note on the organ, and he'd tune it by ear every night. They used to play opening song, which was open E for his slide, and then he retuned to get to standard. And Dickey finally gave him ASG. He said, here, play this thing so you don't have to retune it. Worked out pretty good.
That's interesting. So, I mean, like, obviously, I guess when people scale up and have an ungodly budget, I guess they can afford techs and multiple guitars and stuff. But also, when you said that, like, is that done with electrics more often than acoustics? I guess in my head, I feel like the acoustics I've had, it's always like a very... I might say something that's almost sacrilegious, and you'll have to correct me. But part of the reason I'm drawn to acoustics is because the way that my ears work with sensitivity and stuff, I can hear the differences between acoustic guitars. I don't speak electric, I don't think. Right. I can't hear how they're different in the same way that I think somebody who's like a really developed ear.
I used to be the same way, and I couldn't tell if it was a Les Paul or a Stratocaster when I heard it was just an electric guitar. And, you know, the point I was getting at about individual guitars is, you know, Dwayne played that Les Paul. Stevie Ray played that Stratocaster. Yeah. Rory Gallagher had that Stratocaster. You know, they played their guitar. It wasn't like all these others. And then acoustic-wise, I hear, you know, like Tony's Herringbone and a couple of them. Now I can hear the difference, and I know that's his. I can hear the sound of that. That's his guitar, or that's not, you know, that's not a Dreadnought. That's some other kind of guitar. But no, my older years, I've really turned into an acoustic geek.
I was about to ask you that.
Oh, those are the ones I want to keep a lot of times because they're just incredible. We'll get them in the shop, and I'll go get them, you know, refurbished or whatever, and they're set up, and I sure would like to keep this one, but for having a guitar shop 16 years, I have 8 guitars, and I don't think that's too bad.
Yeah.
I think I've been coming from, I only had one for the 14 years I played with, you know, on the road with the bands. I had one guitar, and that was that Telecaster. And first time I met Sam Moss, the Winston legend, Sam came up to me. Oh man, I kept thinking you'd pull out a Les Paul for the Allman Brothers stuff, and I'm like, I don't have one. I don't have a Les Paul, so I played it on a Telecaster because that's all I own. But that was my guitar. I mean, that was the one. And I'm very fortunate now that, you know, if we do good Allman Brothers ZZ Tops, I've got a spanking Les Paul for that, and it's. Go back again to the gentleman that helped me with getting in my shop. That was my housewarming gift. I mean, as if he hadn't done enough, he played a trick on me. He said, here, I want you to go find the baddest Les Paul you can find. And, you know, here's a budget, you know, just go pick it out. And I had fun shopping. I'm on the internet calling my wife, look, honey, look at this. Yeah, wow. And finally found one I thought would be, if I was going to buy one, I would buy that. And so he said, all right, got it. He said, now when you get your shop, we'll sell it and split the profit. And so opening night, you know, had a gallery hop down there and guys coming in. He's like, well, I knew if I was going to pay, you know, get one nice, I was going to have to pay for it. So he's even going, do you take credit cards? I said, that's the first thing I got is credit card machine. You know, I'm ready to go. My buddy's back there going, no. And he was waiting on his son to get there so they could present it to me as my housewarming gift. And it, you know, and I'm just like, I mean, it's more good fortune, you know, pouring on me. And that guitar, I mean, it's just what a glorious instrument. When I was a kid, you know, lusting over, you know, guitars, you know, oh man, if I ever get anything like that, you know, and now I got it. So that's a blessing, man. I've had them poured all over me with this, especially this last round with the business and all. It just keeps coming. I've got to play with the most amazing players, met the coolest people, you know, just been able to sustain. You know, I didn't want to get rich. I just wanted to make a living, you know, get by and do it. And we've done that. And so, you know, I'm truly blessed on that end, man.
I love it. And I guess I get the notion that when you're able, like with the Blackberry Smoke thing, when you're able, and like especially if somebody maybe is coming to Winston, which is this is like a cool thing. Like when I remember when I was a kid, Garth Brooks came to town.
Yeah.
I believe at the LJVM, and I remember hearing on the radio something like, "When Garth Brooks is here, he's going to have Pulliam's hot dogs before his show or whatever." And I've always remembered that because I find something real beautiful about somebody when they come to experience a place. It's not just that they're going to go do their thing and the community is going to go look at them. They kind of experience life here. And so I noticed like it's something you've been able to do sometimes is just when somebody comes to town, you can connect with some people over guitars.
And oh yeah, man. And just talking about walking in the shop. I mean, I looked up one day and George Benson's looking in the window, you know, and I was on the phone. And I told my buddy, "Oh God, I gotta go. George Benson's here." And and we weren't even open that day. I was down there doing some cleaning and stuff, inventory and things. And I went outside. "Hello, George." He said, "Yes, sir, George Benson." And he said, "Are you open?" "Oh yeah, come on in." So, and,
super open.
I mean, how could this happen to me? I was a jazz student in college. You know, how could? And he was like my hero in college. I was trying to play that stuff, couldn't. You know, my brother said, "You're more of a fusion guy." And here's George Benson. And he stays a half hour with me, just me and him. And he sits down and plays, and all the theory questions I ask him, "Oh, yeah, you just do this." And just a perfect gentleman. I mean, how could that happen? And so, you know, people like that just walk in the door. And he was out visiting the sites. He said his band was always, I told him to get up and, you know, but he was down walking around Winston, finding, you know, checking out the cool spots. When the Wood Brothers came to Ramk, I love the Wood Brothers. And Oliver Wood, you know, he's been by a couple times. He just gets out, gets his backpack, walks around, checks out town.
Yeah.
And pops in. Zach Wild from Ozzy, you know, door open, we say, you know, so stuff like that happens downtown. And they're just out tooling around town. You know, they're not holed up in a hotel where they can't move. They're out checking it out. And that spot, Trade Street especially, I mean, it's right in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
And it's been the perfect place. I mean, it's just, I couldn't have picked a better place. Yeah.
And I guess you've seen Winston probably ebb and flow throughout their time there. You know, I like, as I've been doing the podcast and especially talking to people who were the the bricklayers, the ground layers for whatever, for my demographic coming into Winston and having a place to actually be and
Right.
stuff. You guys kind of did all that. You've seen it change and you've seen technology change around it and everything else. I wonder what your impression is of sort of, I don't know, how we as a community, like what it feels like now compared to what it was either when you started or even if you could identify maybe a peak of community activity. And I guess the reason I ask is, like, a lot of people I know right now, we're kind of looking around, sort of figuring out what is going to be next, and like how are we going to create more stuff, because we've got all this shit in Winston, and we're not doing enough with it, and like it'd be fun if we were doing more. So I guess I'm curious what your impression is of that.
I mean, I've seen it, being downtown like that, I've seen it really change a lot. I mean, when we did, Summer on Trade, then it became Summer on Liberty. That was the single time when people would come out, it doesn't cost anything, come with their chairs out, listen to music. And I know years before, when they did the street scene, they had huge budgets. This is right when I first got here. I mean, and Muddy Waters is playing in the street, and they had some unbelievable, a talent down there. But like I said, and there was maybe 8,000 people in the street back then. So, budgets changed. It cost a lot to do a free show for somebody out there. And I think the partnership, Downtown Winston Partnership, did a great job getting people out. I was lucky enough to play those shows for about 14 years. We did it all the way up till COVID hit, and then some things have changed on that end. Now they did 4 shows this year, and they moved it to 4th Street. Got to kind of help out different neighborhoods, different parts and stuff. So I did a few on 4th Street. Things have gone, I always worried about the venues that depend on ticket sales, because there's so much free entertainment now. The breweries are having free stuff all the time, and they can pull it because they're selling a shit ton of beer, and but there's been some great, the Gears and Guitars Festival. I mean, I got to see Jason Isbell in the Bailey Park, and Government Mule, and just, I mean, that's a big deal for me as a music lover and everything. Just be able to go a couple blocks from my shop and see some unbelievable entertainment. The Ramcat shows. I mean, getting to go see Molly Tuttle when they first, things started opening up for COVID. You had tables that were, well apart from each other when you first got out. And but I've seen, going back to like the garage days, when small place, packed out, big ass fan, but that's where I start meeting people. That's where I go, God, man, this guy's incredible. This song he wrote is incredible. So I think that part I'd like to see more of, the intimate kind of, if it was somewhere you could just, and they've done a good job at Gas Hill doing some of that things and everything too. But if there was more places like that, I think, and if more people could get together for a bigger idea, there's some thoughts coming. I've heard about an entertainment district back behind the 9th Street where Ramcat and Wiseman, there's more land back in there, but that's 10 years down the road. The possibility of an amphitheater thing, I don't know.
I mean, that would be cool.
That'd be great.
It's still, an amphitheater would be awesome, but I still worry about the people who want to sell like 100 tickets. That's been the hard thing lately. I feel like just having a space that's really supportive of that.
Yep.
But
and I know it's hard on them. I mean, they went through hell, pandemic stuff too. About lost everything. A lot of them did lose everything.
Well, absolutely. I mean, even before the pandemic, it was hard for like with the garage and stuff. It's not like it closed because of COVID. Like, it closed because it was a hard business to make a lot of money off of. And sometimes I wonder if. Sometimes I get the sense that the advancements being made right now around us culturally and like technologically are impacting what we think of as the arts or whatever.
Yeah.
Especially because, within my lifetime as a musician, we've kind of shifted from music being purchasable to music being streamable
Exactly.
for what feels like for free.
Yeah.
You know, and
It basically is. I mean, it
yeah,
really
it's pretty
is.
much for free.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. I feel as though that, like, the fact that so much music is free in real life is kind of related to the fact that it's free otherwise.
Yeah. I agree. I agree completely. I mean, it's hard to get people to come out and pay, money now for tickets and stuff and everything. But when they do, I feel like when they really do, I can see the old passion out there. I can see the crowd too getting back into it. And I mean, I'm old now, too. I get it. They don't make them 7 to 9 like they should sometimes. but I mean, I've seen some amazing performances in this town, not just national acts. I mean, I've seen just people I know, and just blew me away. Just completely blew me away. I know you did a thing with Snooze.
Yep.
And God, Snooze, I love you, buddy. One of the biggest single best performances I've seen in a decade was at his house, and things were opening back up. And he came to me one day and he said, got some new medicine. I'm feeling pretty good, and like I'm thinking about doing a couple shows at my house. And I was lucky enough, my wife and I went to see him and Sam Fraser, and I mean, I came out of there. I mean, first off, the songs, both of them, just killed me. I mean,
Yeah.
they just couldn't been better. I had a good time. I laughed. I about cried, man. It was such a moving musical performance with, and it wasn't, it was just in somebody's living room, and it unbelievable. I'll never forget it this day. Mm-hmm. It was one of my favorite musical moments. Those two guys together in their house.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I love house concerts, man.
I'm serious. I never heard it before, except when we were kids, we'd go to somebody's basement or something. But now, it just, that single performance still sticks with me this day.
Yeah. There's just something so intimate about removing all those barriers, and then all you see is just like, it's just the simple like
That
person.
was it. It was stripped down, had some chairs out there, small, intimate, mighty crowd, and it was great. Couldn't have paid, big money and seen anything that moved me anymore now.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's the little things that really stick home with me, especially now. I used to be dazzled by a flashy guitar lick, and now I can hear something that's simpler and everything, and it just hits me a lot harder now.
You're making me think too. Well, something being impressive is also, sometimes it's impressive because it's in the context of the rest of life, and I imagine in a time, I mean, there are still overwhelmingly high budget concerts that they would probably be awe-inspiring just because they're so different from what you usually experience visually and sonically and everything else. But I mean, we now with these things, with these little devices, it's kind of like I would imagine there might be a reverse effect thing to some degree, to where there's so much stimulation from shit like that all the time.
Yeah, it's a sensual thing. They want to hit all the visual, the lights, and they want you, exploded that way.
Yeah, it's like addictive.
Yeah.
So I would imagine then when you see something so pure and simple as a performance in like a living space, it accentuates it in a different way almost.
It took me back to an example, like seeing Jackson Brown in the 70s. And there was 2 spotlights. One was on him, one was on David Lindley. And that was the open of the show. I get goosebumps telling about it. And it's such a simple little opening, nothing dazzling about it, but just the 2 lights and the 2 of them open that thing. And I was like, I had never seen, because in the 70s you were out for rock shows and everything. And that was the first real, wow, this blew me away. Just the softness of that and how powerful that part was.
Man, when I really think about it and start to picture, like, what do I want out of my relationship with music, kind of, I usually remember my dad and I went to see Jackson Brown in Asheville, I don't know, 5 years ago, something like that. And it it was the same deal. There was no frill about it. There was no opening act.
Right.
It was just a big packed theater. He walked out on stage and everyone got excited. There was a grand piano. There was a line of guitars.
Shit ton of guitar,
Shit ton of guitars,
yeah.
which I only remember seeing him play 2 of them. But he had the instruments and he just so relaxed and just talked to us. I remember him saying, he took requests. He was like, what do you guys want to hear? And that people would start yelling shit out, and he was like, you guys like the sad stuff around here. And
downers.
he played his show, and it was just so pure and simple. And when I think about it, I think that's what I want out. He's kind of a marker for me for what I want out of my career. Is if I could imagine myself at 60 years old being on that stage, that'd be everything I could ask for, I think.
For me, and I've never been. I can carry a tune, and if I have to sing, I have to sing. I think I'm a real good background singer. I get all the little weird harmonies and stuff. But for me to be a solo performance, to play and deliver and sing a song and deliver it to where it's convincible, that's not me. I've always been envious of guys that can just do a show by themselves, yourself included, just get up there by yourself and entertain people. Called Daryl Scott at the Ramcat, and it was him. He got a new electric guitar, so he's like, I've got to play electric, and he did the same thing. What do you guys want to hear? And then he also played a couple of my favorite songs, completely different. A whole different song, different key, different. That turned into a rock and roll song where it was slow before and everything. And he told the people, he said, I love playing these songs, but I cannot stand playing them the same every night. So he switches them up all the time. And I've seen him play, like a song his dad wrote, it's The Whiskey. I've seen him play it 3 or 4 different ways. But that night he got his electric guitar, so he was in a rock and roll mood. And there again, one performer just blew me away. I love that kind of stuff.
I get it, man. I don't know. Given that you've described yourself as having that relationship with vocals and stuff, I don't know how it works. If it's like, I guess I would assume you like to have some improv room in guitar, but singing and shit, I don't. I've noticed that a lot of people are the same way. And like people will give Bob Dylan shit, I guess, for when he'll play a concert and you'll hear a song you want to hear sometimes, but it is just like unlike anything you've ever expected that it would have sounded like. And I would imagine, when you play a song for 40 years, of course you're going to want to do it different.
Of course you're going to mix it up.
Yeah.
I get that.
I've played songs for 1 year and just needed to mix it up.
Yeah, I'm tired of that. No, I've been around some good players on that end, but I've always been envious of somebody that could just do it without a band. I'm a great band guy. I think I'm good. I listen to people. That's the thing I like mostly about playing. I don't want to be in a power trio where I'm the guitar player all night long. That bores me, and I know if it bores me, it's going to bore them. So I like to feed off of other people and what they're doing, and that's going to change what comes out of me next. Is what he's doing, and like I said, I've been real lucky. Just amazing players, especially in the triad. There's, the best I've ever played in, and guys that we don't see each other. Maybe when I did the summer shows, once a year, I'd email the songs. Here they are. Here are the keys. Here's what time to be there, and nobody screws up, Or if they did, we got out of it pretty easy, But because they're pros, and that on the spot, on the moment, I always kind of enjoyed that challenge. That's just. All right, let's go do it.
Is improv guitar, or improv blues or rock bass guitar, is that kind of your number one if you identifying your art form?
Yeah, I'm kind of like Eric Clapton was after his Cream years. He was like, I don't want to sing. I just want to be in the band. I want to be, the guitar player. I did a show at the Reeves Theater last year where they did, the house band does a tribute thing, and they did an Allman Brothers show, and they invited me to come up and play. And as the stage was set up, as a grand piano in front, so I was behind the piano with the drummer and the bass player, which for me was a whole different thing because all of a sudden we're in this little club, doing our thing for these guys. And man, that was when I get in a rhythm section like that pushes me. And then when it's time for me to play, that's when you can really get creative and just let it out, and that's what I always grew up trying to do, And yes, the improv thing was, when I got to college, tried to get in UNCG. I got accepted in school, but when it came time to pass the musical exam, couldn't read those notes. So can't come to school if you can't read, So I'm like, oh, crushed. I'm killed. So Western Carolina University took me as a music major. Guitar department's not quite ready, but it's okay. Come on, we're up in the mountains. We don't care. So and the first day they had 84 people in the band room for jazz band. This is college jazz band now. I'd been in a high school jazz band. So had a freshman band, had a senior band, and it was running late. And Dr. Robert Shirley, saxophone teacher, who was just an amazing individual, he was like, everybody just get in here, and we're just going to hose this out. He said he was going to do a 1-4-5 blues shuffle in C, Chicago tempo, about like this. He said, it's going to go on for a long time, people. And so he said, I need to know who wants to take a ride. And so a bunch of hands go up. Well, I didn't know what take a ride meant. I asked the piano player, what's he talking about? He said, he means solo. You don't solo, you're in the rhythm section. And I was like, I do solo. That's what I've been working on my whole life. So I raised my hand, and he's writing down horn players, chair number 3, and what's your name? And he looked at me and said, yes. I said, I'd like to take a ride. And he said, okay. All right. He said my name, just not thinking. And he goes around, and sure enough, we're playing this blues shuffle, and it is going on for a while because he's listening to them play, and you get 12 bars, and you get 12 bars. About halfway through, he looked at me, all right, you. And I played, and then when I got done with the 12 bars, I looked up, and he did like this, and the piano player said, keep going, dude. Keep going. So I went on, and usually if you get 12 more bars, that's when you take it on home. If they give you 12 more, then you can. So I got done, and he came up to me. He said, did you come up with that guitar style of yours? And I said, no, sir. I stole everything I know. He said, that's a good answer. I said, went to UNCG. They said I couldn't play. And he said, because I couldn't read. He said, we'll work on that. And he said, how'd you like being the senior band? So the first day of school, coming from getting my ass kicked at Greensboro, up in Western, I got to be in the senior jazz band, and he gave me plenty of solos. And because he appreciated the creativity, he taught me to things like I was telling you about flashy, notey stuff. It's Van Halen days, so shit's getting shredded up, And I was practicing harder. At school is all I had to do, and he called me out on it one day. I said, I'm getting up flashier, this speed and this. He said, yeah, I wish you'd quit doing that shit. You're starting to sound a little notey. You're starting to sound very scaly, up and down, He said, you lost a little innocent soul I had the first time I heard you. He said, I don't want that to go away. So stop doing all this modal mechanical practicing that you're doing. I want you to stop it and go back to just playing. So here's the teacher telling you, quit doing this book work and everything. And he interjected stuff like, he's a sax player. You didn't breathe. Sax players have to breathe. They have to pause in their music because they got to breathe. And he said, if you don't breathe, your notes sound like you don't breathe. It's all jumbled up. And it really hit home with me. I mean, it really did, and changed the way I thought of stuff.
Damn. I like that.
It was powerful for me. When he got it to me, it just kind of hit me like, wow, you're right.
Are there any, I don't know, like big, you've obviously, like we were kind of hinting at, you've watched the scene change. You've been aware of like people like myself or younger than me that are entering into the music space and the local scene. Any other like interesting bits of advice that come to mind that you have collected over the years?
And I've seen things change. When I first saw you guys play, I mean, of course you were playing stuff I was familiar with, but you guys had the passion for it that pro guys might get together and do a perfectly noted show. But you got, that kind of thing, that's what excites me. And I've seen that come out of a lot of different people lately. Younger players, especially. To me, the best new, as far as prolific, good players are all young bluegrass kids. I mean, they're just blowing my mind.
Bluegrass is going crazy.
It has gone nuts. I mean, the Billy Strings thing, I mean, selling out everywhere and everything. And yeah, that's a little spacey grass, but at least he's brought it to another generation. I mean, at least I saw it in the 70s when Tony Rice, Ricky Skaggs, Jerry Douglas, I saw that resurgence. Before that, for me, it was all just whiny bluegrass that comes to the fairgrounds once a year, But then I saw the virtuosos, players interject that stuff, and it was just like, whoa. So that was the big heyday of the resurgence, and it's happened again now. And, and the young girls, I told somebody this the other day, the best players that come in the shop right now are young girls.
Really?
I'm talking 20s, sitting down playing jazz stuff that I still can't play. I mean, playing all these jazz chords and everything. Polite young people, we fix their guitar. Oh, thanks, B. So that I get, if I ever get down on a younger generation, somebody always picks me right out of it. Comes to the shop, man. They will. I tell people all the time, man. There's some great young people out there right now. So that gives me faith in a faithless world, and the bits of all the crap going on. I do see that, and I'm like, man, that's a big deal to me, to have some hope.
Yeah.
And to hear some of the younger musicians in the music. I got a friend who they're stuck, the 60s and 70s and everything, and that's when music stopped, and they keep listening to the same old stuff. They have oldies goldies forever.
Yeah.
Well, then I hear new people, and it just blows my mind. So I'm constantly listening for something new, something different, and gosh, some of the best songs I've heard has been the last 10 years. So that part always impresses me when I hear, especially young people, when I'm, get some, a lot of techno music, beats and stuff and everything to me. I'm like, well, that's not really music to me. So I hear something, but I respect them if that's what they want to do. But I hear somebody that does something that hits me, and especially for a younger person, it blows my heart up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm so fascinated by the bluegrass thing, and like, I'm glad to hear everything you just said, because I have since we were talking about with the venues thing, since there's not that many places to workshop and sandbox stuff, I've kind of wondered if younger generation if they were still kind of like learning and still getting experience. It sounds like they are.
Yeah.
The bluegrass thing and the influence of some of that stuff is so interesting to me. And I guess it just occurred to me, like, I'm aware of what rap does, how it evolves, how it has shifted into new genres, like subgenres that are popular online or whatever, and seeing this traditional form of music, seeing other forms of music that are common, seeing other ones collide. But then, like, going back to sort of like blues directly derivative rock and roll and how that's changed, I guess is interesting to me. It seems like despite the fact that some music in general is related to the blues and related to those scales, rock and roll in its more traditional forms hasn't been as much a part of like the mainstream music culture in the same way. It's kind of like people love classic rock, but
Exactly.
they don't like update it.
No, they don't want the old artists making new records.
Yeah.
Sheryl Crow basically said, why would I do it? I can write some songs for myself, but why would I go record them when all they want to hear is this catalog?
Damn.
And she meant it in a way that, it just kind of is what it is business-wise. That's kind of what they expect and everything. But when I hear, and we got concerned about the guitar part of music. It's been going on for a few years because with the new techno music, there's no guitar in it. I mean, there's no more guitar solos. Back in the 70s, it's verse, chorus, guitar solo, chorus out. That was the formula.
Yeah.
You know, just the way you did it. And every song had a solo. You had something. If I played, you know, in the 80s with the top 40 band, I better be able to get that solo off that record, and it better sound like that, and that kind of thing. And there's not any of that stuff anymore. There's no, I mean, there's some young rock bands I hear that still kind of do, but they sound like a classic rock band to me. I want to hear somebody new that just, wow, breaks it up again. And for me, that part has been the bluegrass thing, because I mean, these kids will stand backstage and play the exact same thing they're getting ready to play out there, and it sounds just like it. I mean, it's as honest as you can get. You know, they're warming up back here doing exactly what they did. A good friend of mine was a sound man for Molly Tuttle. He does a lot of other bands, but for a while, and it's 4 vocal mics and 5 lines off of instruments. So there's your setup, 9 channels. Done.
Yeah.
And I mean, and to get that kind of quality show under, you know, you don't need all this stuff anymore. So, hey, let's go back to one microphone.
It's interesting, man. It's interesting. And yeah, I don't know. I guess kind of like what I was talking about. I'm of a demographic or I don't know what, who just didn't know how to interpret classic rock or even modern rock or whatever in the same way. And so I guess when I was like coming up in my teens, almost 20, I knew, I was in a battle of the bands and all the other bands were like metal bands. Our band was the only one that had like a blues rooted electric guitar player. And in the middle of the battle, the bands, it was the type of thing where you got to play like 4 songs or something. And this makes me feel and sound old, but it was also a thing where you put out like a link or something and you had people calling in a number. The performances were on TV and you had people calling in a number, voting for who would win and shit. I was the only one that pulled out an acoustic guitar and like sang a song. And I guess it's like remembering that now, it's like we were the outlier. It was like rock, blues rooted rock was just not a thing that people did at that point. It was either heavy metal type shit or it was folk.
Right.
It wasn't like, 145 shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just different. It's just, and I guess thinking back on that time too, I didn't relate to distortion. I didn't relate to like knowing what amps were what or what guitars would make what. I've never been a pedals guy. I've never had any pedal board. Just always been kind of an acoustic guy.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with being stripped down to that. You know, you had the nerve to get up in the middle of the metal guys and pull out acoustic.
Which was silly.
If I'd been sitting out there, I would have been like, that impressed me. Just the balls to do it. I mean, think about it. You know, I'm here. They told me to play. I'm going to play. You know?
Yeah. I remember saying, it was a bad show, but I remember saying to the audience, like, it was real sassy, like, I was like, this is an acoustic guitar. And they were like, all right.
I had one of my students who is now, he's got like 10 million TikTok followers and stuff. And he's blown up. He's kind of the newer country stuff that, but when he first started, we did a show at the Ramcat and his dad came to me and said, oh God, please let them open up for you. They need some exposure and everything. They didn't care, all right, fine. Well, they brought 100 kids that were underage, so they charged them, I think, $12, $14 because they didn't drink. Yeah. Well, they packed the place out, and we made like freaking $1,800. But and so the dad, he when he went to college, the dad came to me and says, they're doing a real big show down at his school, and I want you to go play guitar for them. I'm like, and I said, no. No, I mean these are college kids, and I just turned 64, and I'm like, no, he needs a young kid, somebody, he needs somebody, and he was like, no, I've seen Brad Paisley, he uses old Nashville recording guys, that's his band and stuff. Well, I was just, I'm too old, I'm like, who's Pops over here on the guitar thing and everything, but that he is blown up, just blew it up, and he's got a really good guitar player now, But the fact that, they were just like, no, you go play with them. And which brings me to, I'm getting to where I just feel like the old guy sometimes. I mean, because I used to be the baby in the band. Every band I was in, I was the youngest. For whatever reason, I was the youngest person. And now I'm like, God, I think I'm the oldest dude around here, you know. But they still, you know, I still get to play with them some. So that's the big deal.
I'm starting to feel a shift. I'm not old or anything, but I'm feeling a shift because I never dove into that. Like, I don't have a million TikTok followers,
Yeah.
and I never dove into social media in a very embracing
Right.
way. And
That's okay.
it's fine, but it is a little difficult because it feels as though now it's pretty important to the whole industry.
You got to put it out there some, yeah. But
Yeah.
but you don't want 10 million TikTok followers, you know.
Yeah, I don't even know what that would
Then you got to
do.
be on stage all the time, you know, at
Yeah.
some point. You know, to me, there's no, you know, I read saw this interview with Billy Strings. I mean, he came home from a tour, and he loves to bass fish. So his success was he got a little log house beside this bass, you know, pond he usually goes to. He said he got off the road, you know, where he, you know, you're a rock star essentially for a whole tour. You sold out every show, you know, and he said, and then I came home to my little cabin, and he said I was getting ready to go get my fish and stuff and go fishing. He said, and I just boo-hooed because how fortunate am I that I own this now, and I didn't sell myself out. I went out and did my own thing on my own terms and my own way, and they liked it. And so look what I got now.
Yeah.
I can go fish and stuff. And that humble part of me, you know, that just made me like a kid even that much. Just being able to, you know, to see that's success for me. I don't need a house in Malibu and be on TV all the time. He came home and he said it just hit him that, wow, look how fortunate I am.
Yeah.
And I got to give a lot of credit to that, a lot of respect.
There's something magical about him as a symbol, and the fact that, yeah, he just is himself.
He came from nothing, and he made it. You know, he stayed himself, and he stayed true to himself. And you know, I saw a thing the other day. You know, they're tailgating, you know, sold out, and he just goes out, "Hey, how you folks doing?" And so he took 100 pictures for his side. You know, he's the one taking pictures of the people. You know, and you know, don't need a bodyguard to beat anybody down. Just go out. You know. So I got a lot of respect for that.
I do love that. Damn it, what led us to that? The being on stage all the time. I mean, yeah, like I'll just mention I've noticed a little bit of some of the busier artists that are out there, I guess, in the world right now. Like, there's at least times when I notice that there are people kind of admitting this lifestyle of being on stage all the time and doing this shit nonstop can be detrimental, you know, and can be hard. And you know, so yeah, I think anybody looking at it from the outside, it's easy to just look at the glory of it and assume that that's all it is or whatever.
Yeah.
Assume that you could take that, but you're right. You know, like that, all that shit, those big numbers start to come with a whole different thing that I'm sure is just a whole different level of difficulty to navigate.
That's a fact. And then there's those that's, you know, they're going, I won't say going through the motions. They still do it good, but it's the same songs and the same solos that were on the same records every night. And and I guess they feel like, you know, that's what the people want to hear and everything. But stretching out wise, that's not a part of it. You know, I love the Eagles. They're on the last tour, and I saw them when they were $1,250, so I can't pay $1,000 to see them, you know, and live with myself. But I mean, but they'll come out there, and that guitar solo is exactly what's on that record. And yeah, I guess there's a time and place. Like I said, I got paid many years to do that, but to be able to go past that and be yourself and stretch out and everything, that's the ones I go take a step, you know, and try to make something a little hotter than what you had and everything. So that's where I would be if I still had a bunch of songs that were popular now. I'd still trying to tweak them a little bit. I don't think I could do the same grind every night anymore.
Yeah. Well, so I should probably ask you just one more question and let you go, not take too much of your time. So if I was going to close in on a question, it would be, what is your current passion and joy in life?
Man, I would definitely say, I mean, my business has been a great way to get old. I mean, I got into it 16 years ago, and that's just been, it's just been a wonderful thing. I'm a papa now. I got grandchildren, so that's a whole new thing for me. We were talking the other day, wasn't that long ago when, my mom and dad were my exact age, and, their grandchildren, they're taking them to the beach and doing all this stuff and everything. And we were talking, I don't know if I could take a bunch of kids to the beach right now, just my age. But no, still, what I do is still a big passion. I've got, I got a wonderful family. I got, lovely wife. I got three good boys, and I got 3 grandchildren. And it's just, and the boys got sweet wives. So, I mean, that part is always a big deal to me, just the family. But I still get a passion for a nice spanking guitar turned up through a nice amplifier that gets exactly the tone I want. And then, 1, 2, 3, 4, let's go. Mm-hmm. And we did a show a month ago down at the Cold Pit, and I didn't know the whole last set. The guys from A Deluge were there, and they were kind of doing their thing, and it was like, just jump in and hang on. And I said, I did that on the second song. I've been there with it. But that is a passion to me, to be able to just go, let's go for it, and see what comes out. And that still trips my trigger to this day.
I love it.
It does.
Yeah, man. Well, I guess that captures your story for the time being.
That's a big bunch of it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. There's something real romantic, I think, about the fact that you're in Winston, just kind of keeping this, like I was talking, like when we started, it's just this like little safe. It's just like this little, I don't know, this little haven of loving guitars. And there's something real fun about that, because there's a lot of people in town that guitars have just absolutely made their life what is worth living.
I still enjoy it. I still enjoy getting up and going to work. I enjoy when somebody's got something that's tore up and we can fix it on the fly. It's just, I love being able to, here you go. We had one incident at the garage when Tucker owned it, a band called All Them Witches.
Oh, yeah.
They were doing a video shoot down there, and the bass player, who's a singer, he plays this weird Rickenbacker bass, and the tuning key had broke. Well, they had a film crew. They had a club full of people getting ready to do the video, and he came in, the tuning keys broke, so the string was hanging off. And he said, if you just put something on to make it look like it's there, we were lip syncing the song for the video, just make it look like it's on. And I opened the drawer, and there's one bass tuning key in there. It fit the whole pattern exactly. I put it on, tightened it up, put the string, tuned it up. He and Tucker were looking at guitars, and I handed it back to him. It was 60 seconds maybe. And I said, here you go. He said, no luck. And I said, no, it's fixed. It's good to go. And I think he put my name on the record. But, so that was, that was the Hail Mary, pulled it through. And that's one of the greatest things. I was like, just, the tuning key gods were right there. Here's the one.
That's kind of crazy, because that video ended up making their whole career.
That's what they told me. He came back the next time we were in town. He says, I don't know if you remember. I said, I'll never forget that. He said, that took us all from right there. So
that's kind of insane.
It was pretty cool. But I fixed it, and they did it during the day, but they had the club packed and everything. But he was blown away. I said, go get out of here and go do your thing. I didn't know who they were, but then they've done pretty well. So.
Yeah, they sure have. Well, shit. Well, Mike, okay, I guess I'll wrap us up. Thanks for coming over.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you for talking.
I always enjoyed being around you and playing what times we get to play, and I always enjoy music. So I thank you for having me.
Same to you, man. Yeah. I hope we will get to play again.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's make it a point to do that.
Let's do it.
All right, man.
Good deal.